Marcus, Ryan, Ethan, and Lily. 4 names that once meant nothing more than youth and quiet days in a small town. But when Lily vanished, those names became a haunting reminder of a plan gone terribly wrong and a secret that would tear apart everything they thought they were protecting. Lily Carter was the kind of girl who slipped through the noise of the world, unnoticed by most. Carrying her secrets in the quiet way, she looked out of windows while rain traced patterns on the glass. In a small town where every face was familiar, Lily felt like a soft whisper, moving between the bakery where she worked and the small room where she would write in her notebook under the weak glow of a bedside lamp. She found comfort in the routine, waking up before dawn, helping her mother with breakfast, then slipping out into the chilly morning, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At work, she kneaded dough with her thin arms, powdered flour on her hands, her mind often somewhere else, eyes fixed on the clock as she waited for her break to sit outside near the cracked sidewalk and scribble lines of poetry. Only she understood. Most days, Lily took the long way home, cutting through the park, where rusted swings creaked in the breeze, the trees heavy with birdsong. She would pause by the lake, a small hidden place where lily pads floated in dark water, a place where the world felt paused just for her. The townspeople would see her there, her reflection caught in the rippling surface, her hair drifting in the wind, her eyes focused on the horizon as if she was waiting for something she could not name. She never told anyone about the dreams that kept her awake at night, where she stood alone on a train platform, waiting for a train that never arrived. While people passed by without noticing she was there, Lily kept to herself, but she was not invisible. People noticed the way she would freeze when loud voices rose, the way she would retreat when someone asked too many questions, the way she would stand near the exit at any gathering, ready to leave if it became too loud. Her mother worried about her, but did not know how to reach her, often leaving tea outside her room as a silent offering. Her father, often away, working late shifts, barely spoke more than a few words to her, and the house was filled with the soft sound of the television and the ticking clock in the hallway. Lily's world felt like it was stitched together by these quiet moments, each day folding into the next, the same roads, the same faces, the same dreams that never seemed to move forward. Despite her silence, Lily's eyes held stories she never shared. She saw the way couples argued on the streets, the way tired women counted coins at the grocery store, the way children pressed their faces against windows of shops they could not enter. She felt everything, carrying the weight of the world in her small frame, writing it down in pages she would rip out and toss into the wind on days she felt too heavy to breathe. People assumed Lily was shy, but she was not just shy. She was afraid of something she could not explain, a restlessness that grew louder as the days passed. It was in this quiet life that the last days of Lily Carter unfolded, unnoticed by most, until the day she did not come home, leaving her empty room behind, the notebook on her pillow, the tea on her bedside table, gone cold, and the town left with a silence that felt different from all the silences before. Marcus had known Lily since they were children, back when their mothers would meet at the Sunday market, letting them play near the steps of the town library while the bells rang in the distance. He grew up fixing bicycles in his father's workshop, hands stained with oil, clothes always smelling like metal and rust. Marcus was the kind of boy who would wave at people passing by, flashing a crooked smile, and most people trusted him without asking why. As they grew older, Marcus found reasons to be near Lily, dropping by the bakery under the excuse of buying bread he didn't need, lingering near the counter while Lily wrapped his purchases, her eyes lowering as she handed him change, the air heavy with something neither of them spoke about. He often watched her walk home, his bike moving slowly behind her from a distance, ensuring she reached home safely, but Lily never looked back. Ryan was different, quiet and distant, preferring the company of engines rather than people. He spent most of his days at the local mechanic shop, where the floor was always littered with tools and the air was thick with the scent of gasoline. Ryan wore a black cap pulled low over his forehead, rarely making eye contact with others, and when he did, it was brief and intense. He noticed Lily in ways others did not, observing her when she stood in the bakery window during the early hours, light falling softly on her tired face as she arranged bread on shelves. He often sat across the street in his old pickup, pretending to wait for customers while his eyes followed her every movement. To Ryan, Lily was a part of the stillness he craved, a reminder of the world outside his small, suffocating routine. But he never found the courage to speak to her beyond a few quiet nods when their paths crossed. Ethan came into town like a breeze that rattles old windows, a drifter with restless eyes, and an easy laugh that drew people in. He arrived in a dusty car, with only a backpack and a guitar that he rarely played, renting a small trailer on the edge of town, near the fields where the grass grew tall and wild. Ethan found work at odd jobs, painting fences, helping at the gas station, or carrying boxes at the market, always moving or staying too long in one place. He met Lily when she was sitting by the lake, writing in her notebook, while the sun set, the sky painted in pinks and oranges. He spoke to her like he had known her for years, and she listened, drawn to the way he described the world beyond the town, the cities he had seen, the roads he had traveled under starry skies. Lily found herself smiling around him, something rare and fleeting, like a spark in a dark room. Each of these three young men held a different place in Lily's quiet world, connected to her in ways they themselves did not fully understand. To Marcus, she was the memory of childhood and the simplicity he wanted to protect. To Ryan, she was the calm in the chaos of engines and the soft echo of a life he could only observe from afar. To Ethan, she was the hope of something new, a companion in the stories he told himself about freedom and escape. None of them could have imagined how these connections would tighten and break, twisting into something dark and irreversible. The town remained unaware of the silent lines being drawn between them, each day pulling them closer to a night that would leave the streets empty, the lights on in Lily's room still glowing while the world outside her window began to unravel. The forest had always been there, a dense stretch of trees bordering the lake, where the air smelled of damp earth and pine, where fallen leaves layered the ground like a soft, uneven carpet. Children were warned not to wander too deep, and at night, the wind carried the rustle of branches that sounded like whispers if one listened closely enough. It was the kind of place Lily found comforting, a refuge from the smallness of her house, a place where she could sit beneath the canopy of leaves and let her thoughts drift as she sketched shapes in her notebook, the quiet folding around her like a blanket. She often slipped away to the forest after work, taking the long path along the lake where the water reflected the sky, stopping to watch ducks glide across the surface before continuing on the narrow trail leading deeper into the woods. After Lily disappeared, the forest turned into a place of fear, its familiar paths suddenly heavy with a silence that felt different, as if the trees themselves were holding a secret. Volunteers gathered near the entrance, holding flashlights and calling out her name into the shadows, voices cracking with worry as their lights swept over mossy trunks and tangled undergrowth. Police set up barriers, their vehicles lined along the road, engines humming quietly as officers moved in lines, marking trees with ribbons to track the areas they searched. The forest, once a place Lily loved, became a maze of uncertainty, each step taken by the searchers a reminder of how easily someone could vanish beneath its branches. On the 12th day of her disappearance, a hiker walking his dog stumbled upon something near a broken section of fence deep within the woods. There, lying in the mud, was Lily's notebook, the pages warped from rain, the ink on some lines blurred into soft smudges. Drawings of the lake, sketches of birds, and lines of poetry were pressed together with leaves stuck between the pages, left behind like fragments of her last moments of peace. Nearby, a white sneaker was half buried in the wet earth, dirt clinging to the laces, its presence turning the air colder around it. The search teams moved quickly, marking off the area with tape, scanning every inch of the surrounding ground, hoping for any sign that Lily might still be found alive. The forest's thick canopy blocked the sunlight, making the air damp and cool even during the day, and the deeper they searched, the more the quiet pressed in on them. The sound of their own breathing and the crackle of leaves underfoot the only reminders they were not alone. Dogs moved through the undergrowth, noses close to the ground, handlers following with tense expressions. Drones flew above, capturing the layout of the area, revealing hidden trails and clearings that had not been noticed before, places where someone could hide or be hidden. As the search expanded, stories spread in the town, whispers of what might have happened, of who might have taken her, of what might have been waiting in those woods when Lily walked in for the last time. The forest became a symbol of fear and grief, each tree a silent witness to a night that no one could fully understand, a night where the world shifted, leaving behind a trail of broken branches and the echo of Lily's absence. The place she once trusted to keep her secrets now held them tightly, refusing to give them back, while the town waited, praying for answers that seemed to drift away like mist between the trees. The footage that changed everything came from an old security camera mounted above a small gas station near the edge of the forest, its lens cracked in one corner, the image grainy and washed in pale yellow light. It showed a car creeping along the road at 3:17 a.m., its headlights off, moving slowly past the empty pumps before turning toward the forest path. The car was familiar to many in town, an old blue sedan with a dent on the side, easily recognized as Marcus's. When the police knocked on his door, Marcus stood in the doorway, hands shaking, insisting the car had been stolen that night while he was asleep, his voice thin as he tried to explain the missing keys and the unlocked garage. His words fell heavy in the room as officers looked past him into the quiet house, the television still flickering in the background, casting shadows on the walls that seemed to move with each breath he took. The next morning, officers found the car parked in a hidden shed behind an abandoned property near the outskirts of town, the tires thick with mud that matched the soil in the forest clearing where Lily's shoe and notebook had been found. They opened the trunk, expecting the worst, but inside they found only an old blanket and a single hair clip, the kind Lily used to wear, pink and small, with a plastic flower on top. The air felt different around the car, like it carried the weight of unanswered questions, the fear of what the truth might reveal. When they dusted the car, fingerprints belonging to Ryan were found along the edge of the trunk, smudged as if wiped away quickly, while in the passenger seat, tucked beneath the mat, Ethan's worn leather wallet was discovered, containing a few crumpled bills, a bus ticket stub, and a faded photograph of a younger Ethan standing on a beach. Ryan, when questioned, stared at the floor, his hat pulled low, speaking in clipped sentences, insisting he had only tried to help Marcus fix the car a few days before, and had nothing to do with Lily's disappearance. His hands fidgeted constantly, his nails bitten down, his eyes darting toward the door as if hoping to escape the small interview room. Ethan, when brought in, leaned back in the chair, trying to remain calm, explaining that he had lost his wallet days ago and had no idea how it ended up in Marcus's car. His stories shifting each time he was asked the same question, his smile fading as the reality of the situation grew heavier around him. Meanwhile, Lily's phone, found near the lake under a rotting log, provided another piece of the puzzle. In it were text messages between her and Ethan, planning to leave town together under the cover of night, seeking a new life in the city, a place Lily had dreamed about in the pages of her notebooks. The last message she sent before she vanished read, "I'm scared. I don't trust him anymore." It was unclear who she meant, but it was enough to turn suspicion toward all three young men, each of them connected to Lily in a way that now seemed tangled and dark. The town buzzed with fear and curiosity as rumors spread, people whispering in the grocery aisles, avoiding each other's eyes, wondering how the quiet girl who once walked their streets with her head down became the center of a case that was unraveling everything they thought they knew about those around them. The dawn was pale and cold on the day they found Lily near the lake, the water still and gray under the early morning light, as mist clung to the surface. She was lying beneath a blanket of leaves, as if the forest had tried to hide her away from the world, her hair tangled with twigs, her face turned toward the sky she had once watched so closely. There was a strange, heartbreaking stillness in the air, the kind that settled into the bones of the officers who stood quietly around her, hats removed, the radio crackling softly in the background as birds began to call through the trees. The town woke slowly to the news, each house receiving the quiet knock on the door, each family holding each other in kitchens and living rooms as the word sank in that Lily was gone. The autopsy revealed that Lily had not suffered injuries, but instead had a high dose of sleeping medication in her system, enough to keep her under for hours, until her breathing slowed in the cold air of the forest floor. It was not the brutal end people had feared, but it was no less tragic, a life slipping away while the world around her remained unaware. The investigation began to piece together the final hours of her life, the plans she had made with Ethan to leave town that night, to catch a bus that would take them far away from the small streets she had grown to fear. But the plan had not stayed quiet for long. Marcus, who had watched her quietly for years, learned of her plans through a careless conversation Ethan had with a friend at the gas station. Ryan, who rarely spoke, but saw more than people realized, discovered it too, noticing the hurried glances between Ethan and Lily at the lake, the way she had started avoiding Marcus's visits to the bakery. That night, Marcus confronted Ethan near the lake, demanding to know what he was planning with Lily, his words shaking with fear of losing the only person who made the town feel bearable to him. Ryan arrived, drawn by the tension he had felt growing in the days before, hoping to stop what he feared would happen. They argued in harsh whispers, the wind carrying their words across the water, while Lily sat nearby, taking the pills she had planned to use for the long bus ride to calm herself, unaware that the argument was spiraling into something she could not control. She lay down under the tree, closing her eyes as the voices rose and fell, promising herself she would get up in a few minutes once they stopped fighting. But the cold air and the heavy dose pulled her deeper into sleep, her breath slowing as the night passed. When the arguing stopped, panic settled in. The three young men stood over her, shaking her gently, then harder, the reality crashing over them that she was not waking up. Fear took over, fear of being blamed, fear of the consequences, fear of the truth that none of them wanted to face. They left her there beneath the leaves, promising each other they would return, that it was not their fault, that she would wake up and return home. But none of them came back, each hoping the others would fix what had happened, each too afraid to admit what they had done. The lake remained quiet as the sun rose, the forest holding Lily in its quiet, unblinking embrace, while the town she loved so quietly was left with the weight of a truth too heavy for anyone to speak aloud.